The sky over Tokyo was painted in shades of orange and silver that summer evening of August 12, 1985. Families were returning home after a long weekend, business travelers were eager to get back to work, and Japan Airlines Flight 123, a massive Boeing 747 SR, stood gleaming on the tarmac of Haneda Airport. Inside, 524 souls were preparing for what was supposed to be a short, uneventful flight from Tokyo to Osaka. Among them were children clutching small toys, company executives reviewing documents, and the flight attendants moving gracefully down the aisles, offering warm smiles and bows. None of them could have imagined that this routine flight would soon become the deadliest single aircraft accident in aviation history. At 6:12 p.m., the engines roared to life. Captain Masami Takahama, a veteran pilot with over 12,000 flight hours, sat calmly at the controls, joined by First Officer Yutaka Sasaki and Flight Engineer Hiroshi Fukuda. As the aircraft climbed into the fading light, everything seemed normal, at least for the first 12 minutes. The passengers relaxed, chatting quietly. The seatbelt signs went off, and Japan's rolling landscape glimmered below. But then, a sound echoed through the fuselage, a dull boom, followed by a shudder so violent it rattled trays and spilled drinks. The crew exchanged quick, alarmed glances. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit. The plane was losing pressurization fast. Oxygen masks dropped in the cabin, and a sharp, metallic hiss filled the air. Captain Takahama's voice was steady but urgent as he called out, "Rapid decompression." What they didn't know yet was that the aircraft's rear pressure bulk, the wall that keeps the cabin pressurized, had ruptured catastrophically. 7 years earlier, that same bulkhead had been improperly repaired after a tailstrike incident. The faulty repair had gone unnoticed through years of maintenance checks, but now the metal gave way under immense pressure, tearing open like a wound. The rupture triggered a chain reaction. The explosive decompression blew off a large section of the tail and severed all 4 hydraulic lines. Within seconds, the pilots realized they had lost almost total control of the aircraft. The yoke moved freely in their hands, disconnected from the giant control surfaces outside. The 747 began to pitch wildly, climbing and diving like a kite in a storm. Alarms screamed in the cockpit. Hydraulic pressure lost. The engineer shouted. Controls not responding. The flight crew, trained for almost every imaginable emergency, were now facing the unthinkable: a complete hydraulic failure at 24,000 feet. Down below, air traffic controllers received the mayday. JL 123 declaring emergency. Control problem, came the crackling voice over the radio, but communication soon became erratic. The aircraft was lurching violently, and the crew struggled to maintain altitude. The nose pitched down, the plane plummeted, then surged back up as air caught the tail. It was a horrific cycle of climbs and dives, each one sending passengers into their seats and then against their belts. Inside the cabin, oxygen masks dangled like pale ghosts. Some passengers prayed, others wrote farewell notes on scraps of paper, desperate to leave something behind. The black box recorded it all, the steady, calm professionalism of the pilots, even as chaos unfolded around them. "We have no control," the captain repeated, his voice trembling just slightly. "Try stabilizer trim," the first officer suggested. They experimented with engine power, adjusting thrust to steer the aircraft by sheer force. Miraculously, this crude method allowed them to keep the jet somewhat level. For the next half hour, the flight crew fought to bring the crippled plane back toward Tokyo. The passengers, unaware of the full situation, began to sense hope. Below them, mountain ridges loomed in the distance, their peaks bathed in the last light of day. As the minutes dragged on, the flight crew coordinated with air traffic control to attempt an emergency landing. Controllers guided them toward an air base nearby Yokota, operated by the U.S. military, but the plane's erratic motion made it impossible to align properly. The cockpit voice recorder captured one of the most haunting sequences in aviation history, a mixture of mechanical alarms, calm instructions, and moments of silence so deep they felt like breaths before fate. The pilots, exhausted, kept trying. They discussed options. The first officer suggested, if we can just reach the coastline. But they were too far inland, drifting north toward mountainous terrain. At 6:56 p.m., after 32 minutes of struggle, the Boeing 747 made its final climb before nose, diving toward Mount Asutaka. Witnesses on the ground saw the massive aircraft wobbling, one wing trailing smoke, engine screaming against gravity's pull. The last words on the black box were of quiet determination. "We're losing altitude," said the captain. A second later, "We can't hold it." Then came the sound of impact and silence. The plane disintegrated across the forested ridge, leaving behind a scar in the mountain and the hearts of millions who would mourn the tragedy. Rescue operations didn't begin until hours later due to the remote crash site. When teams finally reached the area the next morning, they found an apocalyptic scene: twisted metal, torn fuselage, and a scattering of belongings that told stories of lives suddenly interrupted. But amid the devastation, there was a miracle. 4 survivors, all women, pulled from the wreckage. One of them, a 12-year-old girl, had been thrown clear of the debris and found clinging to life on a tree branch. Her quiet words to rescuers, "I heard voices calling through the night," hinted that others might have survived the initial crash but died waiting for help. As investigators examined the wreckage, they found the black boxes scorched but intact. The cockpit voice recorder revealed the crew's astonishing professionalism and humanity. There was no panic, no shouting, only disciplined teamwork against impossible odds. The flight data recorder confirmed the complete hydraulic failure caused by the ruptured pressure bulkhead. Engineers traced the cause to a single misaligned rivet and a doubler plate that hadn't been properly attached years earlier. The truth was devastating. One small mistake in a repair, one overlooked detail, had doomed 520 lives. When the investigation report was released, Japan Airlines took full responsibility. The engineer who had supervised the original repair committed suicide, leaving behind a note that read, "I am deeply sorry." The tragedy shook Japan to its core. Families mourned, the nation wept, and the aviation world vowed to learn. From that day forward, maintenance procedures around the globe were changed. Inspections became stricter, repair documentation became digital, and no bulkhead repair would ever go unchecked again. But the black box told more than technical truths. It revealed human courage. The captain's steady tone, the first officer's focus, the engineer's quiet efforts to restore power, all captured in those final 32 minutes, became symbols of what it means to face death with dignity. The tape ends not with screams, but with calm voices, doing their duty until the very end. It was as if they were guiding not just the aircraft, but the souls aboard it toward peace. Decades later, at Mount Asutaka, a memorial stands where Flight 123 came to rest. The forest has reclaimed much of the wreckage, but the echoes remain. Families visit each year, leaving flowers, folded cranes, and messages written on white paper. On quiet days, the wind moves gently through the trees, carrying the faint hum of the engines that once fought so bravely against the sky. It is said that if you listen closely, you can still hear the whispers not of fear, but of courage, duty, and love. In the end, the black box of Japan Airlines Flight 123 didn't just reveal how the plane fell, it revealed how humanity rose. The voices inside it were not lost. They became eternal echoes, reminders that every flight carries not just metal and fuel, but hope, responsibility, and the will to persevere even when the world seems to be falling apart. For every pilot, every engineer, every passenger who steps onto a plane today, the lessons of Flight 123 endure silently beneath the roar of takeoff, invisible yet indelible. Echoes of flight, that's what remains. The courage of those final 32 minutes continues to resonate through every safe landing, every repaired aircraft, every engineer who checks a line of rivets, every controller guiding a plane through the night. It's more than a story of tragedy. It's a story of endurance, of how one disaster reshaped an entire industry, and of how even in the darkest skies humanity's strength refuses to fade, the mountain still stands, and so does their legacy eternal, unbroken, and forever echoing through the skies.